we're here today to call for an end of this policy and to call it out for what it is. It is psychotic, it is toxic, and it is ecocidal.
The climate change is here, and climate change is now.
Today, April 22nd, 2 years ago, the Deepwater Horizon oil rig sank into the Gulf of Mexico, releasing millions of gallons of crude oil, and following that, BP released a couple million gallons of chemical dispersants. This disaster has destroyed countless lives, countless livelihoods, as well as the ecosystem of the Gulf of Mexico. And the BP disaster is far from over. Crude oil continues to wash ashore. There are 12 million people living in the Gulf, and a survey released this month has said that over 87% of residents, of workers, and cleanup workers exposed to contaminants, including crude oil and dispersants, are suffering from chronic illnesses. Many of these people do not have health insurance. There are also disturbing reports of abnormal numbers of dead dolphins and sea turtles washing ashore. There is also a prevalence of deformities in plaguing fish, shrimp, and other sea life. There's oil found in plankton and bait fish, which demonstrates a top-to-bottom impact on our ecosystem. And unfortunately, these problems are most likely just the tip of the iceberg, because after the ExxonMobil spill, it took 4 years for the collapse of the herring population. Now, our Gulf Coast region is critical to our nation's ecosystem and our nation's economy. The Gulf Coast supplies $3 trillion annually to the U.S. economy. It's a gateway for products like coffee, grain, seafood, oil, and gas. The Gulf has historically been a cradle of a third of our commercial shellfish harvest. And it's also an important pathway for migratory birds. It's used by up to 40% of North America's bird populations. And of course, there is a crucial and beautiful cultural history in the Gulf Coast. Now, it also bears noting that the Gulf was not a pristine ecosystem when the BP oil disaster occurred. The destruction of our wetlands, caused mostly by the dredging of over 10,000 miles of oil and gas access canals, had decimated our wetlands, and our wetlands are a crucial barrier for Gulf Coast communities from hurricane-level storms. The destruction of our wetlands was one of the primary causes for the man-made disaster that was Hurricane Katrina, because we did not have our natural storm defenses in place. The only way that we can continue to protect this community and protect our national ecology and economy is to prevent further destruction of this ecosystem and to rebuild our wetlands. Now, despite this incredible ecological disaster that we're here today mourning, the Obama administration has seriously ramped up our extraction of dirty energy. During his administration, President Obama bragged last month that their administration has produced more oil today than any time in the last 8 years. He has bragged that millions of acres of land have been opened up for oil and gas exploration in 23 states in the last 3 years. He's bragged that his administration has opened up more than 75% of oil resources offshore, quadrupling the number of operating rigs to a record high. And he has bragged that his administration has added enough new oil and gas pipeline to encircle the earth, and then some. And despite his public facade of opposition to the Keystone XL oil pipeline, during the same speech at the end of March, Obama declared that he will be breaking down those so-called bureaucratic hurdles to extending this pipeline to the Gulf Coast. So we're here today to call for an end of this policy and to call it out for what it is. It is psychotic, it is toxic, and it is ecocidal. We must call on our administration for what it's worth. And if our administration won't help us, then we need to stand up and call on BP to be held accountable, to pay for the damage to our Gulf Coast, to take care of our people and our environment. So that's why we're here today. So I think we're going to start our Jeff's funeral. We're going to march over to Broadway. We're going to march up Broadway to Union Square, where we're going to have a rally and tell the people of Union Square what's going on and ask them to join us in our fight for a better world.
All of you know why we're here, and I'm not going to try to tell you why we're here. But when you go out and talk to other people, at least what I hear is they say, Occupy Wall Street, that's about economics, that's about poverty, that's about economic inequality. What the heck are they doing getting mixed up with all this stuff about environment and climate? And I think the way we need to answer that is to say that the destruction of the environment and the destruction of the Earth's climate goes to the very heart of what Occupy movements around the country and around the world are all about. What we are trying to achieve is a sustainable life. When people say Occupy Wall Street happened because there were millions of people whose future was taken away. But that's not just a paycheck economics future. That's the same story about our future as human beings here on Earth. And that's why Occupy Wall Street has developed the issues of environment and climate as central parts of what building a sustainable future for the 99% is all about. Now, those of us who have been concerned about climate and studied climate have often felt very, very isolated. I wrote an op-ed 24 years ago called The Environmental Shot Heard Round the World that laid out what was happening with climate change and predicted a global movement in response. Because we had a terrible hot summer in 1988 and everybody was talking about climate change. And then we had people who were paid by the energy industry to tell lies so that they could go on making money destroying the environment. The American people still, most of them believed climate change was real, but they had a doubt. Is this really something we need to respond to now? Is this really something that is happening? And they were told, well, maybe it's real, but it isn't happening now. It's going to happen 20 years from now, 40 years from now, 60 years from now. They were told, maybe it's real, but it isn't happening here. It's happening to those polar bears in the Arctic. It's happening to those unmentionable poor people in Africa and Asia. Well, what's happened now is that the American people, the rest of the world's known this, but the American people are now waking up to the fact that climate change is here and climate change is now. That's partially the result, but those people, something very new has happened. If you say, is it responsible for the floods? Is it responsible for the fires? Is it responsible for the hurricanes that have increased so much over the past few years, and especially in this last year where the weather has seemed to go so crazy? They've got that not connected to the rest of anthropogenic climate change. And 70% of virtually everyone who believes that climate change is real now understands that it's actually causing climate weather catastrophes throughout the United States. Not only that, but 1/3 of the people in that study said that they personally had been affected by extreme weather in the last year. Now, it's not going to take many years for the great majority of people to realize that the reasons that their forests are burning, that their homes are being flooded out, is because of climate change. So we're looking at a new situation as far as that goes, in the way the public understands it. And we're going to be able to speak to people in a very different way about what climate change is all about. I think one thing that we need to do in that context is to start holding the people who have denied the reality of climate change in order to make a buck, or to make those who employ them a buck. We've got to start holding them accountable. We can't, when people say, why are we flooding? The first answer is because we put too much crap into the air. The second answer is, who put that crap into the air? That's the big corporations. And the third thing is, who fooled us into letting them put it into the air? And that has to be to hold accountable the people who have been lying to us for the last 25 years about climate change.
Here, here.